Here's how you know a civilization is in trouble. If you can name the smartest person of an entire century and there's no close second, that field is dying. In 6th century Italy, there were exactly two candidates for most learned person in the Western world. The government executed one of them. This is the story of the greatest barbarian kingdom and why being the best wasn't enough. Look at the intellectual landscape from Rome's height to the early medieval period. During the Roman era, scholars were too numerous to count. By the 6th century, two names, Boethius and Cassiodorus. The 7th century gives us one, Isidore of Seville. The 8th, Bede and Alcuin. When you can count a civilization's intellectuals on one hand, that civilization is in crisis. These rankings reflect not brilliance, but terrifying scarcity. To understand how we got to just two scholars, we need to see what the world looked like in 500 CE. By 506, the Western Roman Empire exists only as a polite fiction. Barbarian kings accept symbolic titles from Constantinople. Clovis receives consul robes, scatters coins like an emperor, but Byzantine administration reaches none of these territories. The Franks hold Gaul. The Visigoths control Spain. The Vandals rule North Africa. And in the center sits the prize, Italy. The most Roman, most prosperous, most culturally intact former Western territory. Whoever controls Italy controls the empire's legacy. The Ostrogoths took a long road to Italy. From the Black Sea to the Balkans, they tried and failed to siege Constantinople itself. The Byzantine emperor, wanting them gone, redirected them westward. Theodoric conquered Italy and ruled from Ravenna, the last Western Roman capital. His tomb still stands there today. Unlike other barbarian rulers, Theodoric didn't destroy Roman institutions. He preserved them. Roman administrators ran the government. Roman law governed Roman citizens. The Senate still met. The games continued, and this was the most civilized barbarian kingdom the world had ever seen. So we have the most civilized barbarian kingdom, the most Roman territory, and the two brilliant scholars. What went wrong? Meet Boethius and Cassiodorus. Boethius was possibly the last Western scholar fluent in Greek. His dream: translate all of Plato and Aristotle into Latin, every dialogue, every treatise, preserved for a Latin-speaking world that could no longer read Greek. Cassiodorus was a Latin educator, a government administrator, a survivor who lived to 90, one executed. One transforms Western civilization. Their parallel lives reveal everything about this moment. Same kingdom, same era, same intellectual mission. Radically different fates, radically different legacies. The difference between them shaped what knowledge we inherited. Boethius' project was impossibly ambitious, translates the complete works of Plato and Aristotle, the entire foundation of Greek philosophy, into Latin. Look at what he faced. The complete works formed a vast corpus. Boethius completed perhaps 5% before his arrest. The remaining 95% never translated, lost to the Latin West for 700 years. The accusation: conspiring with Constantinople, 1 year of imprisonment, then execution in the 530s. During that year of imprisonment, facing death, Boethius wrote The Consolation of Philosophy. Here's what's fascinating. Despite being Christian, the work is essentially Stoic. A man confronting his own execution reaches for philosophy, not theology. He finds comfort in reason, in the nature of fortune, in the eternal perspective. Cassiodorus survived, and his survival changed everything. Here's a counterintuitive truth. Early monasteries were anti-intellectual. Monks focused on prayer, fasting, visions, ecstatic experience. Reading was suspect. Books were worldly distractions from spiritual devotion. Cassiodorus transformed this completely. His argument, monks should copy manuscripts, not as entertainment but as sacred duty. He developed the concept of liberal arts, studies that illuminate rather than produce immediate practical results. Grammar, rhetoric, logic, arithmetic, geometry, music, astronomy. Even practical needs like calculating Easter require astronomical knowledge. The scriptorium, a monastery room dedicated to copying texts, became standard. Monks who once rejected books became their preservers. This is why we have classical texts today. But why did the most civilized barbarian kingdom execute its greatest scholar? Theodoric faced an unsolvable problem. The Ostrogoths were a tiny minority ruling the empire's richest territory. He had to maintain Ostrogothic identity, keep his warriors cohesive, their culture distinct, while simultaneously governing a Roman majority who outnumbered them dramatically. Lean too Roman, lose Gothic support. Lean too Gothic, lose Roman cooperation. And Constantinople watched constantly. Italy was too valuable to ignore. The fate of Odoacer, the previous barbarian ruler Theodoric had overthrown, proved the danger. Any sign of weakness, any hint of disloyalty among Roman elites, and the Byzantines would strike. Boethius, with his Greek connections, became a threat. Theodoric died in 535. Within months, Constantinople invaded. 20 years of devastating reconquest war followed. The Byzantine general Belisarius, then Narses, fought campaign after campaign. Cities changed hands repeatedly. Populations fled or starved. Italy, preserved for decades under Ostrogothic rule, was finally destroyed. Not by barbarians, but by the empire trying to reclaim it. The most Roman barbarian kingdom fell not because it was uncivilized, but because of structural political problems, minority rule, Constantinople's ambitions, the impossible balance that no ruler could maintain forever. But something survived. Cassiodorus' monastery model spread across Europe. Scriptorium by scriptorium, manuscript by manuscript, monks preserved what remained of classical learning, not because they valued pagan philosophy, but because Cassiodorus had convinced them that copying text was holy work. The paradox cuts deep. The most civilized barbarian kingdom couldn't protect its greatest mind. Boethius died with his translation project barely begun. Yet the survivor's idea that monasteries should preserve books saved Western learning. What survives depends on who survives. Cassiodorus lived to 90. That longevity, more than any battle or treaty, shaped what knowledge reached the modern world. Return to the scarcity metric. Boethius and Cassiodorus in the 6th century, Isidore of Seville in the 7th, Bede and Alcuin in the 8th. Each name represents not just a scholar, but an entire civilization's intellectual output. When the Roman Empire was healthy, no one could name the smartest person of a century. There were too many candidates. When you can name them and count them on one hand, you're measuring civilizational collapse, right? The Ostrogothic kingdom was the best barbarian state. It still wasn't enough. Theodoric's Italy reveals the fragility of civilization during transition. Political survival can conflict with cultural preservation. The most sophisticated rulers face structural problems no sophistication can solve. And sometimes the most important legacy comes not from the brilliant mind who died, but from the practical survivor who lived.